Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Peter Nukasani. Peter Nukasani from Once Upon a Brick Inc. is a land flipper with a unique approach to the business. Rather than sending mail and buying properties directly from private owners, he buys land from other land investors at wholesale prices. Then he sells half of the lots for retail to individuals, and half of them he resells to other land investors at wholesale prices where they can make a healthy profit. Since 2021, he has bought and sold over 1,500 parcels and supplies 50 of the leading land companies with inventory for them to resell. Peter, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Wonderful, Kendall. Yeah, that was a great introduction, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. So glad to have you. This is my official first time meeting you, and I've heard so much about you from so many awesome people in the business. So excited to finally get to meet you today.
Yeah, likewise. I've heard good things about what you have going, especially your name.
You like the OnlyLandFans name?
Yeah, it's very young and youthful, so it's kind of nice.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you like it. It was just kind of one of those things that came to me from a marketing perspective, and I was like, this is great. I can't believe no one's not using this. So glad that you like it. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in doing land deals.
Yeah, so it is a long story, but I'm going to condense this into a short form. So basically, yes, so my name is Peter, and when I was in my last year of college, I read, I've read this book really early on called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm sure a lot of you have. So I was this college student last year of school, and I was like, hey, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy rental property and just rent it out. And I have this thing called passive income, and it's all going to be great. The problem was I was not able to get a loan as a 22-year-old college student. Didn't have a quote unquote job or whatever at that time. So yeah, I started looking at this alternative real estate asset classes, because I was like, yeah, I want to be in real estate. But when I started like top 10 ways to invest in real estate, doing the whole rental model was only one. And then I just started reading through all these different opportunities and like different ways of investing in real estate. So then I've ended up on land, right? And then I started looking at land that was near me, like on Redfin and Zillow. And, yeah, 200,000, 400,000, 500,000, and there was nothing on it. And, I was like, huh, that's interesting. That doesn't make it any better. And it's actually harder because they're like, oh, you can't get a loan on land, or it's very hard. The banks don't lend. So then anyway, I stumbled on this website called landwatch.com. And I started looking at all these little land companies. It wasn't like a Remax or, like the realtor companies. And it was these individuals that were selling these pieces of land all across the country. And I, do the traditional sort from low to high. So, and then I started noticing that there was land that you can buy for like $2,000 or $3,000. And I was like, oh yeah, no way, this isn't true. And I was a skeptic. I was a big skeptic. And, I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Let me pick up the phone and call this guy. And the guy was Matt Nunn from Nunn Land Sales, who was also a land investor at that time. And who is a land investor. And so I called him, and he's like, yeah, man, I've been doing this for a while. And there's this whole industry of people that just buy and sell land. And, we buy it for under market and we sell it at market. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. How do you get people to sell their land to you? Because I was just mind blown, right? And then he brought up this thing called, because on his listing, it said like $100 a month or something, no credit check. And I was like, wow, okay, I can afford $100 a month. And then I started asking him, I'm like, so what's that about? Do you use a bank, or like, how does that work? And he's like, no, we just do owner financing with a contract for deed and a land contract. So anyway, basically before I even knew about land and all this stuff, I was I've had multiple other businesses that I've tried in the past. And one of them was a t-shirt company, right? So we would buy blank t-shirts from a wholesaler, and we would get them screen printed, and then we launched our own clothing brand. So I was kind of used to the model of buying from wholesalers. And basically I asked him, I was like, hey, if I buy a couple parcels of land from you, can we put together some kind of deal where I can buy them from you and I can sell them on owner financing, which I barely even understood what it was at that time. But I was like, it sounds great because it's kind of like rental income, and there's not much management, and I can afford to do it, right? Instead of putting my name on a $400,000 house and having no idea how I was going to pay for it at that time. Basically, so that's how it started. I bought my first 3 pieces of land from him. I had this domain from a Lego company that I had going at that time, and that was onceuponabrick.com. So and then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not using this domain for nothing. It sounds fine. Let's just use it for land. Got this website going. It was built on Shopify. And then started listing it on these land marketplaces like Land Century, Landmodo, all the other stuff, because I didn't have a LandWatch account at that time. And then a few days go by, started getting a text or a call here of like, hey, you still selling that land? And then one guy, my first customer, he texted me, he's like, yeah, I'm actually in Holbrook, Arizona, and I know where this piece of land is because I live nearby, and I want a piece of land for storage. So he was my first customer, and I think he bought it for like $39 a month for like 36 months. So, so that's basically how it started. And now our business has drastically changed from that point. We do a lot more than we did when we started.
That is amazing. So, it's a few takeaways that I want to make sure that I get right. So, when you first started this, and the main driving factor for using this strategy of owner finance and the properties that you bought was just the fact that you could owner finance them and they were cheap. There was no other, like, you didn't look, did you do any type of research about, like, what are the characteristics of the property, the location, anything like that?
Not really. I mean, I didn't know any better, and
Yeah.
fortunately, I found a great, almost a mentor, a great guy.
Yeah.
And he, I was kind of like, hey, if this guy bought it, right, it's probably got to be good. So, so I kind of just went off of that. And then I
That's
started
incredible.
learning, started listening to podcasts, never really did a course. I think after really building out our business, I think I started like just checking out courses to see if I can learn what else I can learn. But never took a course. Maybe should have. But I just listened to almost every episode of like the top land podcasts at that time.
That's incredible. Messy action, just getting into it and just making it happen. I love that. Figuring it out as you go, but also having that mentor that can kind of guide you through that process. I'm sure it was invaluable. Um, so what types of land deals do you specialize in now? You kind of mentioned what you started with. What types of land deals do you specialize in currently?
Yeah, so there's 2 sides of our business. One is the retail end, or I call it retail, which is basically selling it to individuals on like owner financing or for outright payments. And this is just the individual that wants to own this property. They want to go camping on it or whatever. They buy one piece of land. The second part of our business, which really took off in the last year, which we only started offering in the last year, actually. And that's turned into the majority of our business now, which is crazy, is actually wholesale. So basically buying and selling to land companies. And the type of inventory Kendall, is like the same kind of stuff, right? I mean, most of our land is under 10 grand. It's, it's usually like 5, 6, 7, 8. And, it does create a lot of work, but, we built our business off of volume, and it's like very high volume. Even though you're not making 40 grand on a deal, if you do enough volume, it kind of makes up for it.
Right. So are you actually closing on these properties, or are you getting them under contract and then assigning the contract?
Yeah, I've never really figured out how to do the whole assignment of contract thing, so I just buy all of them.
Nice. Well, I'm sure you could figure it out if you wanted to. I'm sure you have access to it, but if it's not broke, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's great. Um, so talk to me a little bit about what type of volume you're doing. Like you mentioned volume, like what do your numbers look like monthly, for example?
Yeah, yep. Okay, so I always look at it on like a yearly basis.
Okay.
So last year we bought I think we bought about north of 800 parcels. Um
Oh,
and so we don't buy like 800 random parcels all across the country in different counties. What we do is we just go super deep on a few areas. So we like the same type of lot, roughly the same value, but it's just, can we get these cookie cutter lots, right? Because I love the cookie cutter lots. Because if you're trying to do 800 lots and it's all specific, random, like different acreage, different values, different counties, it makes it very hard. But once if you're buying one, and you have to do the same research whether you're buying one or you're buying 100 for the most part. So we just buy like cookie cutter lots all in the same area.
that's great.
And
So you can replicate the process easy,
yep.
right? Nice, very good. Um, so you're doing these 800 parcels. How do you like? What's your criteria? Can you kind of give us an idea? You mentioned, under 10,000, but do you have any other criteria that you look for?
Yes. So first thing is anything that's not like a minimum 3x or 4x cash, we don't buy. And anything that we can't get all of our money out within the first year of owner financing.
I see. Okay. And how do you go about choosing like your pricing strategy for those owner finance deals?
Yeah, so it's not really a science. Well, we don't have it down to a science, but it's a combination of things. First thing is, if I see an area, first thing I do is I go on LandWatch and I just type in that county and specify like the acreage. So I'll be like, okay, if I'm buying a 1 acre lot, I just put Mojave County, Arizona, 1 acre. And then I can see kind of what things are going for. And I always try to be, like the second, or at least, if we can't be the cheapest, because someone's always going to be cheaper, right? Because someone just wants to liquidate. But if we can be like number 2 or number 3 on, like offering a competitive deal, we usually go off LandWatch. Sometimes we've bought deals in Missouri where there's like no comps, right? And then it becomes a matter of looking at what it has sold for in the past. Sometimes that data is missing. So we just kind of make it up based on what we think it's worth when we don't have that data.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And how do you have some type of formula to figure out this is what the down payment's going to be, this is what the terms are going to be? Do you kind of have like a standardized process for that?
Yeah, so usually if we're selling something for $10 cash, we're going to sell it for like $18 to $20 financing, and that'll usually be over a 4-year period.
Okay. Nice. And what kind of down payment do you do on that?
We don't do down payments. So our whole marketing thing has been the first month's payment is your down payment. So you can go on our website. It's almost like I've always wanted to make it kind of like the Amazon for buying land, right? You just go on our website and within like 4 clicks, you should be able to buy a piece of land.
Very cool. So
And
you
you
make
just,
that user friendly. Yeah.
yep, for the retail side.
Yes. Nice. Very cool. And so, Um, Very interesting. Do you do anything else for in the dispo process other than posting it on your website and um, like other land marketplaces? Do you list in the MLS at all or anything like that?
I've tried. I've tried the flat fee MLS thing, and that's cool. It works. It works pretty well. And I've tried like a realtor when we've had like 100 lots in this one area in Arkansas, and that's cool. But I've tried a lot of different things, right? I tried to run Google ads. One thing that really worked is we were super early on TikTok.
Hmm.
So my page, when I was on there, I think I was like the second or third land person on there. And now there's so many of them, so many land investors on TikTok. So we actually built a pretty big part of our retail business off of TikTok. So all I did was I'd make videos. I was like, got this 0.25 acres in Valencia County, New Mexico. It's in the middle of the desert, but you can buy this for $75 a month for 36 months. And videos like that were catchy. And a lot of them went super viral. And I think it's happened like 4 times. One time it actually crashed our website because of TikTok traffic. And I think because we weren't set up for it or something happened, and it was nuts. Because we were on Shopify. What's really cool, and Shopify is more of an e-commerce thing, and I just didn't know better, so I just used it. So anyway, you can see your live analytics on like how many people are on your website right now, which pages they're looking at, and like how many people visited your website in the last week, the last day, and right now as well. So I think it hit like 30 or 40,000 visitors in one day. So
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was really crazy. And it was nice because we would start every hour. I would refresh my email and it would be like new plan created, and we would be selling owner financing, like land. Like just people would go on the website, start buying land off these viral videos. So I was super, dedicated to doing that for a while. And then now, like I said, a lot of our business has been wholesale, right? So we need to start kicking back up the retail side, and that's what like my sales dude tells me. But yeah, TikTok, tried Google ads. I've messed around with other platforms like Reddit, Twitter. I like to try a lot of things, and whatever sticks, I kind of just double down on it.
Yeah, I love that. So when you on the dispo side, when these people are buying like owner finance, can you for people that are not really familiar with the way that the owner finance process works, were you doing contract for deed or were you going through a title company? How would you handle closings at that volume?
Yeah. Yeah. So fortunately, our business has been like a lot of our lands under like 10 grand, right? Their contract values are like 8,000, 7,000. So we've always just done the paperwork ourselves. So when someone buys, they fill out their information, we create the contract for deed, and then we just send it to them to e-sign.
Oh,
And maybe once we get to the bigger deals, like I'm sure that most of you are doing, I'm sure we'd have to use like a title company. But for now, we just self-close everything.
very cool. And are you guys like servicing your own notes or do you have a third party that does that? How do you deal with the collecting of payment?
Yeah. So we probably should. And the thing is, I'm going to look into that, the note servicing thing. But for right now, we just handle the note servicing ourselves. And we're on like an auto billing thing. So it collects payments by itself. But I mean, it collects payments by itself, but we still have to like do customer service. And that's the negative side of doing tons of volume, but like smaller deals is like it creates a lot of work because at one point we had to manage like 380 notes, and I think today we're managing around 200. So it's a lot of things to deal with.
200 on a light day. That's awesome. I'm just fascinated by this model. So whenever you're doing you know this many notes, do you guys keep track of like how many people are defaulting on the notes? Or it sounds like a lot of people are kind of like doing a novelty buy with like, I just bought a piece of land on TikTok for 75 bucks, and then when they get tired of that for a few months, do they cancel? Like what's that process like?
Yep. So along with not offering when you offer a frictionless payment thing, or like you make it super easy for people, like, yeah, people will sign up, but a lot of them will default because, land is non-essential pretty much, at least in this like part of the market. It's like a novelty buy, right? And people, it's just like, it's less than a car, right? And a car note's maybe 400 bucks, and this land note's 100 bucks, right? So the first thing that they end up canceling when times get tough or they don't want to pay is their land payment. And that's fine. I mean, we check on like a quarterly basis. We say in our contracts 30 days, but we usually just give them the benefit of the doubt in 2-3 months. So every quarter we kind of, check and then do that process.
Got it. And so is there a typical length of time that most of your notes are?
Yeah. So when I started, I was doing like 36 months. And the more expensive a property becomes, the longer we make the note. So if it's a 40,000 or 30,000, which we have done, we're not going to put it at 36 months because that's going to be like, I don't know, like $800 or $900. And that prices a lot of people out. So what we'll do is we'll just put it over like 72 months and it'll be 400 a month.
Got it. Very cool. What type of buyer were you finding was coming off of TikTok?
Yeah, definitely impulse buyers. So people would see it and they maybe want to use it for like, they just want to buy it just to say I own land. Or, there's other types of people too, right? There's other the customer profiles or whatever. Second would be like someone who wants to go camping or have some off-grid land in case the world ends. Or, the third person would be like the aspiring investors. So like, it's like, like if you look at stocks, right, there's Acorns, there's Robinhood, right? So it's usually that type of customer.
Yeah, that's really cool, Peter. Just, I could see how, that type of product would be really attractive to someone that doesn't have a ton of money, but they want to get involved and, get their feet wet and say, I have a piece of land and I can do that at $75 a month. That's a really cool product. That's awesome. So, talking of, we talked a lot about the dispo process. Let's talk about the acquisition process. How do you target which markets to go after?
Like geographically.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not specific. I'm kind of like wherever, there's enough volume. So like, I'm not interested in buying like 5, 6. And I mean, now we're starting to like explore that side too. But when I started, I was like, okay, where can I go and buy 100, 200? So wherever the volume is, right? And for us, we've noticed that when I started, like Valencia County, New Mexico, that was it. That was everything on our website was that county and the same type of lot. It was just different lot numbers, different APNs. So I just go wherever there's deals, right? If it's Florida, cool. If it's Missouri, cool. If it's Arkansas, if it's Nevada, Arizona, it doesn't matter, right? Wherever there's volume and the numbers work and, we can do well selling it wholesale, and the people who buy from us should crush it. So like, we don't sell anything wholesale that we can't assure that the person who buys it makes a good profit on, because that's honestly how we've kept almost all of our retail wholesale customers, because so the numbers, it's more of a numbers thing for me more than like it has a cool creek on it in the
Right,
back.
right. So if someone's listening to this and is like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. It's blowing my mind. I want to get started like today." How do they go about finding where they start? Like, do they throw a dart at the map, or like how would you advise them to pick an area?
Pick an area to buy wholesale or pick an area to buy like cheaper inventory.
Both.
Yeah, cheaper inventory. I think a good place to start, honestly, is you just go on the MLS like Zillow, Redfin, and you can look at land. And I always like to put it like under 50,000, and I'll just be on my phone zooming in and out of areas and seeing where there's a ton of red dots, where if the price is under 50 grand, right? So once you notice that there's a ton of listings all in one area, and they're like 5K a lot, 10K a lot, and they're not selling, right? Then I'm like, okay, this area seems like there's not much action. And there could be like a reason for it, but there's also just a lot of areas with just tons of land that are ignored,
Interesting. Very good. And so, with that much volume, what is the rate of deals that you've closed on that you aren't able to sell?
Mm. Um, they eventually all sell. It's just like it's a matter of time, right? So when I make an investment into an area, I like to have all of our capital out within a year so that we can go do the next one. So for me, I've never really, I don't mind carrying inventory on our books. Like if we own something that's cool, we're going to keep marketing it till it sells. And we try to sell at least half of what we buy within a year.
Very cool. Okay. And so, can you talk a little bit about the marketing? What do you do what's your favorite marketing channels? Are you texting? Are you sending mail? Or how do you go about doing that?
So on our acquisition side, we actually don't send any mail. The only thing that we do is like I'll give you an example of how we bought the first 200 properties in New Mexico. I was on Land Watch and I made a list of all the different land companies that were on there. And I started observing who were the people that had a ton of inventory. And I called them and I bought my first 20 parcels from them wholesale. And basically I went back to them and kept buying because they had so much inventory. So we actually don't send any mail. Almost all the properties that we've purchased have been from other wholesale land companies. And
Wow.
and those are like, I only knew two people when we started. And yeah, and I bought almost all the property from them. And later on, I just put a list together of all the land companies on LandWatch and had the VAs scrape all their emails. And we just started emailing them one by one and hopping on the phone.
That is very cool. So you don't do really any outbound marketing on the acquisition side?
I tried once and it failed horribly.
You're like, nope.
So I sent 50,000 mailers in like 6 weeks. And our team, we didn't have the right, like I had like 2 new people and it was just a mess because I think we got like 800 calls and we didn't have the bandwidth to like, and the thing is, the worst part is we didn't target one area. Like I just went statewide and chose multiple states. So then for comping, it was like, it was just a mess.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? We're just going to do what we are, like good at. And so I tried that. And as far as like outbound, it is still the same thing, right? We're, instead of reaching landowners like individuals, we're reaching companies and we're negotiating deals with them and buying it from them, providing them like liquidity. And we're also like, we have like a margin in the deal and it's just straightforward.
Got it. So how do you negotiate with these land wholesalers? Like, do you have any tips or tricks in terms of how you negotiate? Maybe, you know, being that you buy in volume, do they give you a deal because you're buying, you know, X amount of parcels versus just one? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's very, very relationship based, right? And so when I started, I was paying a lot more than we pay now, right? It's because of how much you spend with someone, right? And they know the value. They call, for example, when someone calls me, and I've worked with them before, and they're straight up, they're honest, and they've proven themselves, right? So usually, people are like, oh, we're going to think about it and we're going to let you know. And we just send the wire out like the next morning. So like it's done. So being able to do that, even like a funder, right? Like one of my friends is a funder, and he, like, he'll talk to someone, and then if he knows like the person who's doing the deals and the acquisition side, if he says it's good, he just sends the wire. And having that kind of relationship, people value over time, and they'll start selling to you because they're like, hey, I just closed on this thing today, tomorrow I'm going to sell it to Peter. So their internal rate of return is super high when they do that.
Got it. Nice. And so do you, when you are doing these acquisitions, do you ever buy them on owner finance from the wholesalers, or you just pay all cash?
When I started, I did not have the money to just go all cash on everything. So I did land arb. So the properties in Valencia County, New Mexico, I actually bought all of them on land arb, and sold all of them on owner financing. And the delta, like between what I was paying per parcel versus what I was selling it for, is what enabled me to save up. And then now we only buy it with cash.
Nice. That is very cool. So, speaking of spread, let's jump over to the wholesale piece of it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what types of, like, in order to be able to sell it at a discount, you must be buying it at an even much deeper discount. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage that?
Yeah. So wholesale, with what we're doing, it's pretty hard, right? Like the margins are very tight. But when, again, the whole volume thing. But so if you sell, for example, we have a piece of land or property in Michigan, right? The land we sell for retail, it's like 5,000, right? And then we sell it for, I think, wholesale like 1,500, right? So usually our margins are like 20-30% on wholesale. So it's not great. But if you make $500 a parcel, but you sell 200, I think that's like 100 grand. So
Yeah, it adds up for sure whenever you're talking about scale.
yeah,
That's very cool. That's a cool model.
it's hard. It's hard. Not every, like, we pass on deals all the time because the margin isn't there.
Right.
You know?
And so, do you have a goal percentage of value for the product that you're offering wholesalers? Like if a wholesaler were to come to you, they know that when they buy that parcel, they are capturing, you know, I don't know, 20% equity in the property or something like that. Do you have a kind of like a goal that they have a certain, like, this is the floor for the discount that they're going to get?
Yeah. So on a lot of our properties, we make sure that people can at least triple.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, because like the expensive stuff, it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to buy. I mean, maybe some of you guys do it, but like buying something for 200 grand and selling it for 600, unless you're like subdividing, so if someone buys it for like 1,500 from us, we want them to at least sell it for 4,500, whether it be it on owner financing or cash. And a double is an absolute minimum. So if it's like, if the deal falls under a potential double, we just retail it.
Got it. Very interesting. So I'm going to ask an obvious question. Why, what would make you decide to wholesale it and take a um, smaller fee than if
Yeah.
you were to wholesale it to an end buyer, for example?
Yeah. So first thing is, because we get that question all the time, like, oh, if it's so good, why don't you just sell it for top dollar retail, and make the most profit or margin, right? Great point. But the problem is when you buy stuff and you have a good deal pipeline, you're always going to get deals. And if you just sit and wait for everything to sell retail, it's going to mess up your cash flow. And we don't use funders currently. I mean, we have like one like company loan, but that's different. But yeah, I mean, so half of it, we just sell wholesale. So we get our money back and the margin covers some of the retail holding. And then the retail stuff is the money maker.
I see. So it's a speed thing. You keep
Yeah,
that.
it's a speed thing, and it's getting your capital back so that you keep rolling it into the next deal.
Got it. Yeah, that's very smart. That's very, very cool. Um, so you said you've been doing this since 2021. Um, where do you see the market going? I know a lot of people are talking about market shifts and things like that. I know everyone's kind of felt it, at least in my circle, we talk about it all the time. Where do you see the market going, and how are you going to pivot or prepare to thrive in that market change?
Yeah, I mean, so far right now it seems to be good. It's like a little bit softer than it was last year. Um, but I think especially the expensive stuff, I think everything's going to have to check out. You're still going to have impulse buys on a smaller level. And if you offer like owner financing, like I think it's going to be fine. But it's definitely not like as impulsed and crazy as it was during like the lockdown period.
Got it. Got it.
And I'm not sure, like, I don't know where it's headed, but whichever way it's headed, we're just going to adapt and figure it out.
Roll with the punches, right?
Yeah.
Great. Um, so what advice would you have to someone that is looking to get started? They have zero money and they want to get involved in land and they want to do it tomorrow. What advice would you give that person?
Um, I think the challenging thing, maybe when getting started, and I'm sure like there's a lot of people that are mail or die, which means like they love their mailers. Um, and I would just say, like, try to buy deals wholesale, right? Or having option, like if you have a access to some funds, you could try buying wholesale, and that's what I did, right? Because I just had, my first deal was $1,500. And that was my total investment. That's it. And yeah, so 15, so if you can come up with like 2, 3, 4 grand, buying your first deal wholesale, I think is a great way. And because then you're eliminating paying if you make a mistake on mailers, that 4 grand is gone. But at least even if you pay like 4 grand for a property that you can sell for 7 or 8, it's fine, right? It's better than losing the 4.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it cuts out a huge chunk of, the expense whenever when you find a deal that's already been vetted by someone that says like, hey, this is a wholesale deal, and it seems like it just makes the barrier to entry so much lower, because there's the deal. You don't have to market for it. You don't have to call the seller, negotiate, and do all this other stuff. It's already under contract, ready to go. So you just take it through the dispo process. That is very cool, Peter. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's unconventional. And it's not all like sunshine and whatever, but it's good. It's great. And I want to continue doing it. Like, now I might experiment with like the whole direct acquisition things on bigger deals. But yeah, I really love wholesale. It's so easy because I don't want to talk to sellers, and like, it's just a lot of so my friends run they do mailers and they like negotiate with sellers, and it's just a skill set, right? The wholesale thing's a skill set. The mailers thing, you can crush it on. You could probably do much better than with buying wholesale and stuff, but it's just a matter of choice and how much time you have to dedicate and things like that.
Yeah. So speaking of skill set, what do you think is among the most important skill set um, to have to be successful in the model that you're doing with the wholesaling?
Yeah. I think you have to know how to be a deal maker.
Mm.
Yeah, knowing how to be a deal maker. Talking to people, understanding like how you can meet them, to where both people win, and how you can think outside the box, right? So, for example, sometimes we do deals with land companies where we have a relationship with them, like they've bought a lot of inventory. I'm like, hey, if you have a cash flow issue, just give us 30% today and we'll give you a payment plan over like 3 months. So you can pay your balance. We'll deed it to you today, go sell it, and you just pay us over the next 3-4 months. We don't do that with everybody. And there's like a certain, relationship that happens, but things like that. And that's usually in the business world, that's like net 30, net 60, right? And no one thinks about doing that for land.
Yeah. I love that, borrowing different things and just making it work, especially when you make it a win-win for everyone, right? Like that's just a great situation. It's just good business. So, what can you talk a little bit about what your analysis process looks like? Like you mentioned a little bit, running comps by just going to land watch or something like that. How deep do you go when you're first identifying an area to say, okay, this is an area that we want to go all in on?
Yeah. So I actually don't go all in on one area. So meaning like, all in meaning like with all of our resources, right?
Right,
Because
right. And what I meant was like before you decide, let's buy 100 parcels in this area,
yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah. So before we buy like 100 parcels in an area, um, that's literally all we do. Like I spend a few hours like scouring the internet, checking Landwatch, Zillow, Redfin, and just seeing what does this area have going for it, right? And who would be like, what would be that customer profile of someone buying this? Like, is it a builder, right? Or is it someone who wants to go camping on their lots? And is this near like a big city? So it's a lot of guessing, right? And honestly, if land was such a efficient market with Zestimates and like, tools that tell you exactly what this house is worth, none of us would be here.
Right.
Right. Because then you're like 2 hedge funds away from just closing that inefficiency. Right. So it's a lot of guesswork, and I'm not really much of a, like an analysis person. So I kind of just go with what I like feel.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know. I don't know if that's like the right way to do it, but that's how I do it.
Hey, if it
And
works for you, man, there is no right way. It's the way that works for you.
yeah, I'm just being honest, right? Like
No,
that's
I
like,
love it.
yeah.
It's great. It's great. So, if someone's hearing this for the first time and they're like, man, I think I really want to try buying from other land wholesalers. Can you give us some tips in terms of how you go about establishing a relationship with these land wholesalers, talking to them about what you're doing and what you want to do, in order to be able to start working with them?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that is an easy kill is going on all the land marketplaces, be it Landwatch, whatever, and identifying who owns property or who does like property that fits your criteria, right? You make a list of all those people, find their emails, find their, cell, like phones thing. It's all publicly available, right? And you just email them and cold call them and say, introduce yourself. Like, hey, my name is, Peter, so-and-so, and, this is what I'm looking to do. I want to buy from you. Is there anything on your inventory that you think you can cut me a break on so that I can start buying from you? And some people they either get it or they don't, right? We don't try to sell or like convince them, right? If they get it, they're going to work with us. And if they don't get it, that's okay. There's a lot of, like people who own property and land investors and land companies. So, you call 100 people, I bet you're going to find a few people who have a good amount of inventory that you can buy wholesale all day from.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's really, really good stuff. So can you talk a little bit about what your team looks like? Like how many people do you have on your team? Who's helping with your operation?
Yeah. So there's me, and then there is Mike, who's our director of sales, and he's a goat. Like he actually manages all of our wholesale relationships. So he knows like all the people that buy from us, who sell to us. And he's like the key part, Mike. So he's my sales director. He's out of Vegas. And then my executive assistant, which is Joy, she's out of Houston. And then our operations are people, because we self-close. So Noah handles all the deeds. He's also in the States. And then Aaronola, who is our customer service director for the retail side of our business, is also out of Houston. And then that's pretty much it for the US. And then for overseas, we have the team in the Philippines. And that's just a couple of guys. And then recently we started like trying to do text messaging for larger deals. And that person is out of Pakistan.
Cool. And where are you located?
Chicago.
Nice. So you've got a true virtual team. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice maybe one day like having like a little office and going in person.
Yeah. Do you guys ever meet up at all? Like we're gonna do a day at Disney or something?
Not at Disney, but we were just down in like the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area.
Nice.
Mike and Noah, like my sales director and operations director. And we just hung out for a few days, and that was the first time we met in person, and it went well actually. So
thankfully.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Nice. So, what is your superpower?
Well, I would say building relationships, like making deals. Like I think I've built that over the last few years, right? Because a lot of like for example, wholesale, right? Like they'll try to send you a deal. It's not even wholesale. It's like it's retail, right? And we don't play that like game, right? And if someone's charging us a little more, it's fine. Like we'll pay it for the first time, and they'll understand that other people like try to play games and like drag out the process. But I would just say making deals happen and trying to build good relationships.
Nice. So, are there any tools or resources that you're using in your business that you really like something that you love? Like, what's a tool or resource that you really love right now?
Google Sheets and Trello. Checking out Priced. We use MapRight. Great tool.
Soon to be Land In.
Yeah, I think it's like Land ID or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I kept going to mapright.com and I typed it in like 2 times because he would keep taking me to a different website. And then I saw that it was like, it said land ID, formerly MapRight. And I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're trying to like figure out how to use Airtable.
Hmm.
I love Zapier. And we used Klaviyo for email marketing.
What was that? Klaviyo?
Klaviyo, yep.
Nice. Cool. So, are there any like entrepreneurs or business owners that you like to follow?
Um, yeah. So I think there's one called I actually listen to like two podcasts that are not like land related.
Mhm.
So the first one is called Group Chat, and it's called Group Chat News, and it's like three business owners in the fashion space who talks about things that are happening in the world. And so I used to actually consume a ton of like this entrepreneur content and all this stuff, like the Gary Vee thing, and that's cool, that gets you started. But actually I found that it distracts me, and it gets too much information. It makes you kind of like distracted from what you actually think and what's going to work for you. So I've dialed that down a lot, right? And then the second person I think who actually delivers pretty good value is Alex Hormozy. I really like his content. And then Brad Lea's Dropping Bombs podcast is really good. Yeah. And then I listen to a few land podcasts as well.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, I'm a Hormozy fan too. I like every
Yeah.
time I listen to him, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. It makes me feel like, oh, I have so much to do.
Yeah, the way that dude just like goes about stuff is it's so crazy,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So good. So what is the biggest surprise you've had on your land journey so far?
I would say, like, instead of land journey, I would just say this entrepreneurial journey. I've learned two things. One, there's no for me at least, I've learned this recently, is like some people are obsessed with growth, and that's cool. I've realized recently that I'm kind of happy with where things are at, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I prioritize other things more than like, oh, I want to have the biggest land company and like all this stuff. If it helps fuel the lifestyle that I'm looking for, and it gives me the time to spend it with the people that I want to, I'm more than happy with that. So growth isn't everything. Number two, that things will work out, and whatever you want will happen. So just chill out and don't be so hard on yourself. And, because that affects other areas of your life. And three, have a great margin of safety, right? Because when and I've picked this up from somewhere, I don't even know where, but ever since then I was obsessed with it. It's called a 5-year emergency fund. Right? And everyone, when they think about an emergency fund, they think, oh, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. But imagine how differently you would operate if you have a 5-year emergency fund, right? And if you look at a lot of these, like entrepreneurs or whatever, these people have that. They have a 5-year, 10-year emergency fund. Like, everything could fail today, and they'll still be good for 5 years. They have 5 years to figure it out. So if we can find a way to somehow get this 5-year emergency fund, the way that we, do our business and like whatever would completely be different, right? And one way I've done that, like that I'm starting to do that, is there's this thing called Profit First, right? And it's a book or someone. Basically, I mean, there's a whole book on it. And the thing that I took away from it is you have to force your profit. So like, for example, if your business makes, or you think it makes, like 10 grand a month, automate 5,000 a month to go into a separate account, holy account, and you never touch that account. It doesn't get used for paying bills. It doesn't get used for investments or buying land deals. That account just starts accumulating. And the higher that amount, the faster that you get that 5-year emergency fund.
That's really good. Yeah, you would show up completely different, you know, to everything if you knew that I could fail. Everything could be wiped away right now, and I'd have 5 years to figure it out. That's a really cool perspective. Yeah, that's awesome. What's your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Personally, uh, like full sovereignty, right? Financially, to not be to be basically plugged away from, like financially retiring is a great way to be sovereign, right? Having multiple places to live, right? Like if you want to live in, in Mexico, you have a house in Mexico. You basically operating on different parts of, living in the different parts of the world, being financially fully retired, and and also becoming, like being more healthy. Like I'm trying to, get in shape more and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't have any real, like, I don't think that far ahead, but I would just say to keep doing what we're doing, and kind of, that 5-year emergency fund, like sovereignty, I think has been really on my mind, right? To not be, like forced to do something, um, or have to do something. And that can even mean like eliminate, like simplifying your life, right? Like minimalism. And I mean, not like on an extreme example, but like just making your life super simple, right? Instead of buying an $80,000 car on a loan, and you're like, oh, I have to go work now, I have to pay this car note. Just buying a car for cash, or buying a house for cash. And to basically, that's kind of what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, that's the dream, man. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Um, what's one thing you think we should be talking about in the land space specifically that no one else is talking about?
There's so many of us, we're all doing amazing things. And when I first started in this business, a lot of people were like, they were kind of playing the whole secrets game. Like they're thinking that there's a secret, and they have to protect which areas that they're mailing, or which areas that they're buying, which areas that they're selling. But there has to be a way that we can all kind of like consolidate and work together. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, like relationships and being a connector.
Yeah. Well, it is definitely apparent in your business model with the wholesaling stuff. I mean, um, I'd love to collaborate and just, play with some things and test some things out for sure. That's very, very cool. I love that. So, I first, before we hop to questions, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and for being so generous with your time and for giving so much to us. How can we give back to you right now? Like, is there any connections or resources you're looking for currently?
Um, just introduce yourself, right? If you email me with like a little bit of like what you do, if there's a way that we can work together right now, cool. If there isn't, at least I'll know you. And one of the things that I'm kind of passionate about is doing a land event. And Kendall, I think we should talk about this, like, figuring out a way, because there's all these little communities of like land stuff, and that's cool. But I wanted to figure out a way that it's kind of like it's like a neutral event. It's not like, it's just land, right? And there's nothing that you're going to be sold. There's nothing. It's just, we're there to hang out. And I think there's a way that we can do this. Like maybe it's just like planning everyone go to like Phoenix this date through this date, and then we all just hang out. And
Yeah, yeah,
and
I love
and
that.
and the last point is, I recently, last year, I think, and I think they've been on this show. So some of my friends, um, it's so crazy. And I'm gonna stop with this story. So I sent out these cold emails, right? And this guy starts buying from us. He starts talking to my sales director, Mike, and so Drew, right? So Drew, he was like, "Hey, I need to talk to the owner." And he's like, "Yeah, it's this guy named Peter." And so I call him. So he started buying land from us, and we started talking. And then he invites me. We met once in person because he was in Chicago. And then he invites me to a mastermind, and it was just 4 of us, right? And we go up to his family's lake house. And basically we built relationships on that weekend that I think genuinely will last a lifetime. And we're still really good, like we're great friends to this day. And even now, like outside of the land stuff, we're just personally good friends. And I consider them probably some of my best friends today.
Yeah, that's incredible. The power of connection, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I want to go to the next lake house retreat.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. So if people want to contact you or check you out online, how can they do that?
Yeah. So my email is my direct email is sales, SALES at onceuponabrick.com. And then also, of course, if you call our company line, and you can always, like, Mike's always there, and he's a phenomenal resource because he's talking to land companies all days. He knows what's happening. And sometimes he knows more of what's happening than I do. So he's a phenomenal resource. And, email for me.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you so much again, Peter, for joining us. This has been really incredible. For all of you listening, if you haven't signed up for our Facebook group, Only Land Fans, you can do that at onlylandfans.com. Check out our podcast. This will be on the podcast. This episode, also video podcast, my YouTube channel. All of those links are in the chat right now. So please feel free to grab those. We will see you guys next Thursday. Thank you guys so much for showing up, asking great questions, and being an amazing audience. Peter, thank you again so much for being so gracious with your time and so generous. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kendall.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, have a great week. Be great. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, Only Land Fans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.